One thing that P.T. Barnum realized during his lifetime was that there was a total fascination with the Egyptian world. Barnum embarked very early on in his life, in his career, to collect curiosities from all over the world. We really don't know who the mummy is. In the next 3 days, the results of all of these tests and CAT scans and x-rays are going to be able to broaden the idea of who Pa'ib actually was. So even after 100 years of being on display, the Barnum mummy is still revealing remarkable secrets. It was one of the greatest attractions of the museum through the 20th century and even today. The planning that has to go into moving human remains, let alone a museum artifact, is rather extraordinary.
Now we have a wonderful imaging facility at the university, Quinnipiac University, where we'll get more detail and be able to save and look at that data and really study it. We can look at very small objects within the mummy and get high resolution. That's when we'll really get all the answers to the questions. Today, we do know some things, but what we want to know is right here.
Interestingly enough, it is my pagan friend to whom I entrust the delivery of my final message. I know that years after my death, some studious one will discover this key to my vindication. To the finder of this note, I humbly request you seek in the foundation of my Institute of Science and History an homage to the structure. A gift of scientific history is found beyond the Romanesque brick archway. In an alcove's alcove, beneath the newly constructed coal chute, find my last reel and testament. I predicted your wise nature would have you first initiate the sound recording. Now, to ensure the synchronicity of this vivid presentation, cue up the visual to my jumbo. Then, upon hearing the horn, you may engage the visual magic. If all goes as designed, you're watching this well after my demise. Through inventions my friend Thomas Edison helped me innovate, and utilizing the skills of my associates at the Bridgeport, Connecticut American Graphophone Company. Our experiments resulted in this project. I felt the need to return because I'm certain my detractors would never give up on besmirching my reputation. Something I've grown accustomed to in life. They call me the Prince of Humbugs, intended as a negative characteristic, accusing me of being a charlatan, a scoundrel in effect, wrongfully appropriating from my customers. But on behalf of my children's children, I thought I would set the record straight. I prefer the title, The Children's Friend. So please, indulge me for a few moments. I've procured the gracious time of some of my friends and acquaintances who can provide balanced commentary I believe will exonerate me and the activities of my enterprises and all those associated with them. Allow me to briefly introduce one of my dearest and oldest friends. He who, while diminutive but large in stature and character, was in fact the first recorded by this light-capturing contraption we call the graphoscope. No matter what Edison and others say, I was a lover of new technologies and fanciful gadgets. I was among the first to encourage the moving image industry with Matthew Brady, whose photography studio was across from my museum in New York. The ultimate product being what you see here. Among many notable contemporaries, I was one of the first to recognize technology could be used to the benefit of our endeavors. That is, the effort of bringing joy and laughter to our customers. In my early years in Bethel, when a Danbury newspaper refused to publish my editorials against blue laws, which threatened my lottery business, I created my own newspaper, the Herald of Freedom, to voice my opinions. Eventually, I was imprisoned for libel against someone I presumed to be a misguided church leader.
Why, you called me a canting hypocrite who took usury of an orphan boy. Well, of course I sued your ass. Assets.
The 60 days in jail were great. The publicity and party after my release made me a local folk hero. Publicity, good or bad, brought me war recognition, a standard I employed during my first promotional venture. Joyce Heth, a 161-year-old former nurse to George Washington himself. Okay, so she wasn't 161, or even you, our founding father, but I learned I could make humbug produce good results. Of course, publicity is only as good as your product. Thank God for the Scudder Museum, which I bought to create my wonderfully successful American Museum in New York City. I didn't have gold for the purchase, but I had plenty of brass, if you will. My greatest find came when my travels left me snowbound in Bridgeport. I heard word of a very, very small boy and asked my brother Philo, who lived in that beautiful city, to fetch me the youngster. 5-year-old Charles Stratton was barely over 2 feet. Immediately I recognized the potential, so I hastily drew up and signed the contract that day with his parents. $3 a week plus room and board for the tyke and his mother.
Barnum was a great man, like a real father to me. And he was the most famous of our time.
Bah, on the contrary. How about the enormous sums Barnum was making up with my little Charlie? I mean General Tom Thumb, of course.
How about the wonderful training he personally gave me? He had me spend hours in tutelage for my studies. And we spent many joyful hours creating my characters. A general, Hercules, Cupid, and even Napoleon. Eventually, he increased our pay 5-fold.
He should have given us more money, that huckster. He's a humbug. Look at the Fiji mermaid. Fraud. His so-called buffalo hunt in New Jersey. Fraud. General Tom Thumb, an 11-year-old from Europe. You a 5-year-old from Bridgeport, for God's sake.
He paid us a small fortune. Not to mention, I was paid $25 for each kiss from a girl. I must have smooched $1 million.
I still say we were cheated. I demand more money.
But Daddy, he hired you as a carpenter and let us live on the 5th floor of the museum with all our wondrous and curious friends. And he took us on a triumphant whirlwind tour of Europe.
I loved the little darling. What was that jest about his being royalty? He was twice a ruler. Aha. Yes, only 24 inches tall. I remained in deep fascination with the little showman. He and Mr. Barnum were often granted audience with my children. While Americans lack the nobility or stiff upper lip of my subjects, I can't help but admire the brash, entrepreneurial spirit of Mr. Thumb's handler, America's millionaire, Mr. Barnum.
I have had the great fortune of traveling the world over. Being abroad, I witnessed what others find appealing and learned to be daring. Have you seen the can-can? Ooh la la!
Ooh la la! What is that? French for burning in hell?
My dear Charity, don't forget we also socialized with royalty.
By royalty, do you mean the vineyard keepers of Bordeaux and Champagne?
I may have enjoyed myself a little too much as I traveled throughout Europe and through the continent's wine country. I was starting to get a taste for the fruit and the vine. In fact, I crushed grapes with my own feet.
Yes, very appetizing.
I was always on the road, away from my wife for long periods. Lovely Spanish women working the fans were nearly irresistible. My wife Charity, exceedingly nervous and given to hysterics, chastised me. While resistant at first, giving up alcohol became a necessity. Believe it or not, I became part of the temperance movement and advanced liquor reforms as a legislator. I built a Ranistan, a sort of Chinese, Turkish, opulent home based on what I saw during my travels. The new me would come to cherish those years in our new home.
As did I, Phineas, praise God.
There's no place like home. While Europe is wondrous, America remains the greatest country on earth.
Working for the Brooklyn Eagle as an editor, I often visited the fascinating Barnum American Museum. So much so, I'd heard their detectives often trailed me to observe my intentions. I got to know Barnum and interviewed him upon his return to the States. I asked him, if he had become smitten with Europe. In no uncertain terms, his gray eyes flashed, and he said,
"My God, no, not a bit. There, with the royalty and formal lifestyles, everything is frozen. Here it is life, freedom, and here are men."
A whole book might be written on that little speech of Barnum's. At the time of my interview, Barnum's views on slavery were much like the nation's, filled with prejudices, conflicts, moral dilemmas, and fear of abolition. But, to his credit, in time, Barnum became a staunch defender of abolition as well as our Civil War. The once Jackson Democrat eventually threw his support behind Lincoln, the Republican. Even under threat of life, Barnum took on the secessionists publicly. In fact, his building was attacked by Confederate arsonists. Barnum, ever the great promoter, uncharacteristically refused to buy relics from Lincoln's deathbed for exhibition and turned them down. That's where he drew the line.
A dog-faced boy is an impresario's best friend. I knew Barnum during his autumn years, and I've heard many stories from my animal friends about the good times and the bad. About the 4 great fires at the New York museums, the Hippothéron, and at his Iranistan home. I'm scared living in the now Barnum and Bailey Circus winter quarters in Bridgeport. It's the animals who are at the greatest risk. Many animals have died. Barnum himself is like a cat with 9 lives. He survives fires, even bankruptcy, after his bad investment with Jerome Clocks. I'm still loyal to my master. What's that I smell? Oh, not again!
As founder of the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, I despised Barnum's operations. He was a semi-barbarian, and I identified many acts of cruelty through the years. I was incensed he would have a horse jump through a hoop of fire.
While his vocation was noble, he was wrong there, and I proved it by jumping through the ring myself and winning the case outright in court. That said, I admired Mr. Berg's efforts and eventually joined the ASPCA myself.
Well, admittedly, I think we rubbed off on each other and have become friendly acquaintances. And I thank Mr. Barnum for his generous contributions to my cause and the delightful statue in his hometown.
I tolerated Barnum. He helped us put kids through college.
You like Barnum? He think he owns us. Only reason Barnum wants us is to get 2 for price of one. He also tried to put us in that fire trap.
But he gave us toll to get away.
I want to get away from you. I want a legal separation.
That okay with me. Barnum said he sent us to Europe for the operation.
I don't trust him. He make elephants do farm work. Proud!
That's just good publicity for all train riders to see.
Barnum have harem girls. He not so moral.
You know that's just publicity too.
He fraud, like the fake Cardiff giant corpse. He thinks soccer ball every minute.
Come on, you know he never says soccer ball every minute. He wanna make people laugh.
He a penny pinching Yankee. I want to go home to North Carolina to our families and slaves.
Oh, shut up, Chong. You just drunk again.
Oh, you shut up, you teetotaler. You kiss Barnum's backside.
If that's true, then what should be doing while I kiss his backside? Haha.
That does it. I kick your
Try it, not possible.
Stand still so I can punch you.
Me first.
Now, you two. After all, you're an educated poetry reading act. As a matter of fact, you were part of my movement towards more highbrow entertainment, such as the aquarium, my lecture hall, and the theater to reach America's growing middle class. I made my shows worthy the support of the moral and refined classes. Best of all, of course, is the divine Jenny Lind, the Swedish nightingale. Oh, I offered her the biggest contract ever. I brought her here from Europe and made us all rich while spreading culture by way of her operatic melodies. Think of all the notables who attended her performances. President Fillmore, there was Webster, Clay, Irving, on and on.
I was so impressed by Iranistan, I had to come and meet Barnum himself. Of course, much of my wages went to charities such as orphanages and the Firemen's Fund.
Thank you for that. After all, I seem to keep those firefighters busy. Regardless, the divine Jenny Lind took America by storm.
I concede to Barnum's great business acumen, but don't take my flattery as meaning anything more than platonic admiration, regardless of the great times we had together in places like romantic Havana.
Yes, well, she became a household word in the 1850s. Clothing, furniture, and accessories used her image to sell products. Strangers even made money off her celebrity before the age of official endorsements. I made her more money than she ever dreamed of, but she decided to attempt it on her own. How did that go, Jenny?
Okay, so I should have trusted you. After all, you never told anyone I was an illegitimate child. You kept my secret. Maybe that's why I offered to help, as did many others when you went bankrupt.
Thank you, Jenny, but it wouldn't be necessary, as the large venues such as the Hippodrome and my eventual interest in the circus helped pull me out of trouble.
I stayed up nights reading his autobiography and was fascinated by the expeditious nature of his accomplishments. He inspired me to self-publish.
I thought Samuel Clemens was a gifted writer and my favorite public speaker. I asked him to write some endorsements to support my candidacy for congressman. I fancied him a good friend, but somehow he was a little cool to me in my more serious endeavors.
I visited the old man from time to time, but he was a bit devout when I knew him in the 70s. I couldn't get around to writing for him in any case. I found him too trusting in both mankind and the ways of politics. He thought he could serve the people by way of politics. I do believe patriotism is supporting your country all the time, and your government when it deserves. As far as I'm concerned, when he became mayor of Bridgeport and state representative, I thought he joined the world's worst fraternity.
A man who takes no interest in politics is unfit to live in a land where government rests in the hand of the people.
I preferred the man who tested bridges with his elephants. It was the perfect Barnumism, if you will. Who cares if it was just a stunt? Why, even my boy Tom Sawyer had some Barnum in him. How else would he get others to pay him to paint the fence?
That little Sawyer reminds me of my youth. I can see now how my adventurous youth made me the person I became. As a farmer boy, I learned manual labor was not my vocation. I also recall a traveling showman who came through Bethel to exhibit an elephant, by golly. No wonder I love that jumbo, God rest his pachyderm soul. You do know he died in a train accident. I certainly was a lucky youngster. I learned about humbugs from my granddaddy, who left me a worthless island. From true Yankee humor and tit-for-tat stick-to-itiveness, I found great confidence in several townsmen who took to furnish me with faith and capital. The lottery taught me much about human nature. My Universalist principles endow me with the belief that there is inherent worth and dignity in every person, and justice and compassion are divine blessings. These principles have affirmed my character and have helped me cope with my many tragedies, something Twain could never understand. I learned the haggle at the country store, After my father's death, I was resolved to succeed in the world, and it wouldn't be with wages, but with entrepreneurial savvy. For me, while the end is near, I know that death is a good thing, just as much so as life. I'm content knowing that I was part of the noblest art, that of making others happy.